Scene 3 introduces us to the religious character in this play, Friar Lawrence. When we meet him, he is out in the morning gathering herbs because he makes medicine with them. He says, "The gray-eyed morn smiles on the frowning night." And one thing we're going to get a lot of with Friar Lawrence is this idea of dichotomy. Dichotomy between good and evil. So we see that even here in the first line. Gray-eyed morn smiles on the frowning night. So we have two opposites here, smile and frowning. We also have morning and night. Checkering the eastern clouds with streaks of light, and fleckled darkness like a drunkard reels from fourth day's path and Titan's fiery wheels. So he's just talking here about how in the morning the sun comes up and seemingly frightens or banishes the darkness. Now ere the sun advance his burning eye, the day to cheer and night's dank dew to dry. We have a little bit of a alliteration right here. But we're not going to stay on this too long because there's more down here. I must upfill this osier cage of ours with baleful weeds and precious juiced flowers. So again, seeing more opposite words, weeds and flowers. The earth's that's nature's mother is her tomb. Mother and tomb. Two sides of the same coin. What is her burying grave? That is her womb. Grave and womb, more opposites. We're also seeing a connection here between life and death. And from her womb, children of divers kind, we sucking on her natural bosom find many for many virtues excellent, none but for some, yet all different. So he's talking about how all of these plants that he grows in his garden can be used for different purposes. There are some that are excellent, some that we don't use for anything, but they're all different from each other. O mickle is the powerful grace that lies in plants, herbs, stones, and their true qualities. For not so vile that on the earth doth live, but to the earth some special good doth give. For not so vile that on the earth doth live, but to the earth gives. So even things that are evil can be used for good purposes. Bad, in quotes. He's going to reiterate that again in a minute. Nor aught so good, but strained from that first use, revolts from true birth, stumbling on abuse. Virtue itself turns vice, being misapplied, and vice sometime by action dignified. So this is kind of our driving force for the Friar Lawrence character, these two lines. Virtue itself turns vice, being misapplied. So, something good can be misappropriated can be misused to be something bad. Can be misused. And vice sometime by action dignified. And sometimes bad things can be good. And remember, Romeo is here because at the end of scene 2, Romeo and Juliet decide to get married, and it's Romeo's job to set that up. So now we're going to see how he talks to Friar Lawrence. But this section here is still Friar Lawrence right here. Still Friar. And he's going to get into a little bit more about this dichotomy. Within the infant rind of this weak flower, poison hath residence and medicine power. So within this flower, there's both poison and medicine. One flower contains both. So too is it with us, with people. There's good and bad in everybody, and it can be used for different purposes. For this being smelt, with that part cheers each part. Being tasted stays all senses with the heart. Two such opposed kings encamp them still. So this is kind of a reference to our two opposed kings. Who are our two opposed kings in this story? Montague and Capulet. In men as well as herbs. Exactly. In men as well as with plants, there's good and evil, grace and rude will. And where the worser is predominant, full soon the canker death eats up the plant. However, with people that are more evil, or where the bad part is the most predominant part, that death, that evilness, will destroy the plant. Evilness will devour, we'll say, living things. And then Romeo enters. Good morrow, father. Benedictine, what early tongue so sweet saluteth me? Young son, it argues a distempered head, so soon to bid good morrow to thy bed. Care keeps his watch in every old man's eye, and where care lodges, sleep will never lie. But where unbruised youth with unstuffed brain doth couch his limbs, there golden sleep doth reign. Therefore thy earliest doth me assure, thou art uproused with some distemperature. Or if not so, then here I hit it right. Our Romeo hath not been in bed tonight. So this is a very long way of saying, wow, you're up early, and it's weird for teenagers to be up so early in the morning, which makes me think that you were up all night. So Friar Lawrence is suspicious, and Romeo confirms it. That last is true, the sweeter rest was mine. And of course, Friar Lawrence, not knowing about Juliet yet, says, God pardon sin, wast thou with Rosaline? He thinks that Romeo was with Rosaline last night. But we know that that's not true. With Rosaline, my ghostly father? No. I have forgotten that name, and that name's woe. He has forgotten about Rosaline. Or he's moved on from her. That's my good son, but where hast thou been then? I'll tell thee ere thou ask me again. I have been feasting with mine enemy. Because he was at the Capulet's party. Where on a sudden one hath wounded me. That's by me wounded. Both are remedies within thy help and holy psychic lies. I bear no hatred, blessed man, for lo, my intercession likewise steads my foe. So, I have been both healed and wounded. He's talking about how meeting Juliet has kind of brought him back to life, he feels. However, she's a Capulet, and that's not good, so... But it's okay, because Friar Lawrence can help us. Friar Lawrence is the solution. Be plain, good son, and homely in thy drift. Riddling confession finds but riddling shrift. So, Friar Lawrence is kind of calling Romeo out in this section, saying, stop mincing words, stop talking in circles, tell it to me straight. And kind of calling Romeo out on his wanting to speak in all of these poetic lines. Then plainly know my heart's dear love is set, on the fair daughter of rich Capulet. As mine on hers, so hers is set on mine, and all combined, save what thou must combine. By holy marriage, when and where and how, we meet, we wooed, and made exchange of vow. I'll tell thee as we pass, but this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today. So, remember, this has been not even 24 hours. This is the very next morning after Romeo and Juliet met, and they're already wanting to get married. So that's why he's there. Romeo wants Friar Lawrence to marry him and Juliet. However, we'll see what Friar has to say. He says, Holy Saint Francis, what a change is here! Is Rosaline that thou didst love so dear so soon forsaken? So he's shocked. He's like, you were so into Rosaline, and now you're just going to throw her away just like that for this new girl? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. This is interesting because this whole time we've been talking about how Romeo really only comments on the way these women look. He talks about how beautiful Rosaline is. He talks about how beautiful Juliet is. And Friar Lawrence is directly stating that young men don't love with their hearts, but with their eyes. So we'll just add that in. So up here, Friar L. So he's basically calling Romeo immature. Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline! How much salt water thrown away in waste to season love that of it doth not taste. So he's saying you cried all of these tears for Rosaline, and they didn't even amount to anything because you guys never even got together. So you wasted all of that time and all of that effort on her for basically nothing. The sun not yet thy sighs from heaven clears, thy old groans yet ringing in my ancient ears. I can hear you now, crying and moping about Rosaline, yet here you are asking me to marry you someone else. Lo, here upon thy cheek the stain doth sit of an old tear that is not washed off yet. So he's saying, I can even still see the tears on your cheeks for Rosaline. If ere thou wast thyself, and these woes thine, thou and those woes were all for Rosaline. And thou art changed? Pronounce the sentence then, women may fall when there's no strength in men. So basically saying when men are not strong, and the man is not strong in the relationship, that's when the women also fall. So basically he's saying, Friar Lawrence, he doesn't believe that Romeo truly loves this girl. Juliet. Thou chidest me oft for loving Rosaline. So Romeo's saying that you tease me a lot for loving Rosaline. And Friar Lawrence calls him out for doting, not for loving, pupil mine. So he's saying, you just thought she was attractive and you made up all of this stuff about her. You didn't truly love her because you don't even know what that is. And bates me bury love, not in a grave to lay one in, another out to have. I pray thee, chide me not, don't tease me. Her I love now doth grace for grace and love for love allow. The other did not so. So he's saying this is different. This is different because Juliet loves me back. The other did not so. Rosaline did not. Oh, she knew well thy love did read by rote that could not spell. So he's saying, yeah, Rosaline didn't love you because she knew you were full of whatever. But come, young waverer, come go with me. In one respect, I'll thy assistant be. For this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love. So, Friar Lawrence just went on and on and on about how Romeo is immature, he doesn't truly love these women, but at the end he's like, yeah, I'll marry you guys though. Because, remember his whole thing about good and evil, he thinks that this marriage could end the feud. And then we have a tiny bit more before we end this scene. Oh, let us hence, I stand on haste. So Romeo's like, sweet, let's go. I stand on sudden haste, I'll let her know. And then Friar Lawrence has some parting words of wisdom. Wisely and slow, they stumble that run fast. So this is his warning to Romeo. Go slow. When you're going fast, you tend to trip. So he's kind of confirming here that Romeo and Juliet are rushing into things. However, he still agrees to do the marriage. So take that what you will.